Wife and mother of 3 dies in police custody at the airport. And, excuse me, our family's filing an $8 million lawsuit claiming police did not do their job and roughed her up a bit. You might remember this story. Carol Gotbaum, she was traveling from New York to Tucson last fall, heading for rehab for a drinking problem. Well, problem ensued. She got drunk in the Phoenix airport, missed her connection flight, got angry, out of control. Police cuffed her and left her in a holding cell alone at the airport. She accidentally strangled herself trying to get out of those cuffs. Tragic story here as you see her with her children. And that's what we're talking about here. Those 3 kids lost their mom. But we're here talking about this story today because we're trying to figure out who's to blame. And joining us to talk about that is attorney Andrew Smiley, who specializes in wrongful death cases. Andrew, good to talk to you. Let's take a look at some of the footage to start with. This is surveillance footage as she was apprehended. And as we watch this, now, here she is. Again, and the reports are, you can see she's kind of flailing. She was argumentative, wasn't cooperative. In this here, do you see excessive force, anything that's going to be a part of this case?
No, not in these videos,
okay.
and I don't think that that's really what the issue is in this case. What they're concerned about here is what went on afterwards, when they brought her to the holding cell and they put her in shackles and they left this woman who was clearly what the police classify as an EDP, an emotionally disturbed person. They left her alone, in shackles, in a cell, unobserved, and she ended up dying from it. That's the issue in this case.
What is the law there in that? What should police have done?
Well, the first thing they should have done is had her evaluated. They could have brought an EMT, someone to check her out, see what the situation was, and she clearly would have at that time been classified as someone with alcohol in her system, someone emotionally disturbed, someone that needed to be handled following the protocol for how you handle an emotionally disturbed person, as opposed to how you'd handle a terrorist or someone with a gun or with a knife or someone who's a clear threat to others. This woman was a clear threat to herself, and they needed to handle it in that way. By putting her in a situation where she was unobserved, with shackles, with devices where she could injure herself. That's where they're looking at being held accountable for her death.
You know, and I don't want to... A husband lost his wife, and I don't want to bash him, but a lot of people, myself included, ask the question, how do you let her on this flight alone in the condition she was in? We want to, Andrew, first off, listen to the 911 tape as basically a frantic husband talks to a dispatcher, and at this point I believe that his wife had already died, but let's listen and we'll take it from there.
Okay.
She is suicidal. Obviously she is alcohol abusive, but she is also in deep depression, and the police have to understand that they're not dealing with someone who's been just drinking out flight and acting rowdy. That's not what's going on here.
Okay. Yeah, I think somebody talked to the other dispatcher on that earlier, and we passed along that information.
Well, but again, I have not heard anything back.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, unfortunately...
It concerns me, Mike, that they have not called me, that they're just dealing with her, that she is all alone. Okay, because she should not be.
You know, again, the chilling part of this, she had already been dead for an hour when that call was placed. Let's talk about negligence on the family's part. He indicts himself in some ways when he talks about depressed, alcohol abuse. Is there negligence here that she was even let on a flight by her family?
There's not, and this is sort of a bit of a red herring. People may wonder why she was on the flight alone. We can only guess as to why that was, but that has nothing to do with the issue in this case, which is how she died in the hands of the police custody. Even if he was with her, if her husband was with her and she acted out and acted crazy and they arrested her, he would not have been put in the cell with her. He wouldn't have been in any position to do anything. And what's interesting
wait a minute, he would have given them the information they needed. He would have been able to explain what he did to that dispatcher. You can't deny that. And they might not have treated her the same way.
Right, certainly. And what he said from these tapes is that he notified them a while ago, prior to the tapes we just listened to. How long ago that was, we don't know. Was it before she died, before she was put in the holding cell? We don't know. If they did have that information, that would certainly help the plaintiff, the family in this case. But even without that information, Mike, even without that, the police are supposed to assess people as to how much of a threat they are to themselves. And without even being told that she might have been depressed or suicidal, simply by her actions and examining her and assessing her, they should have handled it in the right way.
Real quick, I want to hear how police defended their actions. Let's give that a quick listen. Give your comment and wrap it up. Let's listen.
All right.
The officers had no idea what the condition was of Ms. Gotbaum. They had no idea about her medical history, her prior history. And that information was not conveyed to those officers. They did not have the opportunity to know that.
There you go. They did not know.
Right.
How are they supposed to? I mean, you don't know when you have someone was acting rowdy. I mean, I know there were circumstances. Can you really blame police if they don't know all the circumstances?
Well, certainly. They don't need her medical background to see she's an emotionally disturbed woman. She doesn't have weapons. She's not a threat to anybody. So the real issue here is you take someone who's acting irrationally. She's obviously intoxicated and drunk. Do you stick them in a room in shackles, unobserved for an extended period of time? That's what this case is going to come down to. They have protocol for this, and my understanding is that's not what they're supposed to do with someone who appears to be in this condition.
So that's the whole deal here. How she was handled in that holding cell, and how are we going to find that out? She was the only one in there, right?
No, well, what's going to happen is during the course of the case, there's going to be what's called discovery. They're going to get the rules, the protocol that says, officer, this is what you do when faced with this type of individual. And it's going to say you keep them under observation, most likely. It'll say you get an EMT. Or it may say you stick them in a room and shackle them up, which I highly doubt. And when they get these rules and they look at the protocols, they'll see if the police acted accordingly. My suspicion is that they did not, and that's why there's a valid case here.
All right. Andrew Smiley, we appreciate your time. And again,
Sure.
Bottom line here, it's a tragedy that 3 kids are now without a mom. Andrew, thanks again. We'll talk to you soon. And